All right, Robert, what do you want to hit on next? We got tons of things. I mean, this story about all of these record highs and lows, temperature-wise, is really quite interesting. Hundreds of new records already set. But your point is this is a regular cycle, but the modelers won't play with it. And the geological record proves it. Deep ice core boring proves it. It's bizarre. Record events for the month December 6th through December 12th only. Now, we're just talking 6 days. Total records, 2002.
Oh, really?
319 rainfall records, 320 snowfall records, 71 high temperature records, 426 low temperature records, 767 low maximum temperatures, and 99 high minimum temperatures. So
that is just, and the thing is that this is going to become more the norm, the normal, because we have been in what's called an interglacial. Is that about every 100,000 years there's a period of about 10,000 years where it's comparatively warm and comparatively dry and comparatively benign. And we've been living in one of those interglacials of that time, and that's why civilizations have been able to grow so well. But that's abnormal, because 90% of the time, during the other 90,000 years, the weather is much more extreme and all over the place.
Right.
And this again, it has nothing to do with humans. There's something called orbital stretch, and this is another one. Previously I talked about the smaller, if you want to call smaller ice age, that kills 40% of all animals that weigh over 100 pounds, because that's what happened with the extinction 11,500 years ago when the mammoths went extinct. And that was not even one of the bigger snow occurrences, but that is something that comes every 11,500 years. But then approximately every 105,000 years, we go into a really, really major period of ice and snow, a major ice age. And that has to do with orbital stretch. Our orbit around the sun is not a perfect circle. I mean, most of us think it is, but it's not a perfect circle. It's elliptical. And so part of the time, part of the year we're closer to the sun, and then part of the year we're further away. But that orbit, what's called orbital stretch, it's where the orbit comes down to near a circle, and then it lengthens out into an ellipse, and then it comes back to near a circle again. That takes approximately 105,000 years. And that 105,000-year period, again, that should be in the computer models, because the last time that this happened was approximately 105,000 years ago. So, and this is not, when we look at earthquake things, or, well, the last earthquake occurred 300 years ago, but we're not sure how often they return. But with ice ages, we do know. And so they really should be in the models. So we're due for the next 105,000-year ice age cycle. We're due for the next 11,500 years. That's based on another purely physical phenomenon called precession of the equinoxes. And then we're also due for a little ice age. And that's already happening as far as I can see. During the little ice age, the big problem was food. I am telling people that survival food is going to be very important.
Robert's remarks are crucial. Now, we've seen storms blow up out of nowhere. Let's say you didn't make it to the grocery store this week, and some of these heavy storms leave you isolated for days. That alone is reason enough for you to invest at least $1,000 on food. Easy for me to say when you don't have it, but what are you going to do? Die or be practical? So go ahead.
Oh, it's so important. During the Little Ice Age in the 1600s in the United Kingdom, they weren't covered with snow. But what did happen is that the rainy season lasted about 5 weeks longer in the spring, and then so the farmers weren't able to get into the field to plant their their crops because their crops just wouldn't start up in all that rain. Well, they finally did get their crops planted late, and then lo and behold, the rainy season came 5 weeks earlier. So they weren't covered with snow, and yet literally millions of people died of starvation.
What's the forecast on food vis-a-vis the weather aberrations for next spring? What are you getting on that?
Oh my gosh! Well, I don't know whether you've seen some of the cost of commodities, but
I have.
But wheat and corn, so many things have risen by 60, 70, 80% just in this 1 year.
Correct.
I mean, that's almost doubling.
I know.
In 1 year. Well, so many different places in the last year have had gigantic floods that I think that we're going to see more of that, not less. By the way, in addition to having the website, Ice Age Now, I did write a book about this called
Yes, you did.
Not by Fire, but by Ice.
I remember the book well, and that's what got us introduced long ago. And
yes, it is.
That book is just as valuable now as it was when you first released it.
I have a new book out, too, Magnetic Reversals and Evolutionary Leaps. Well, the reason I wrote it is when I was researching the first book, I kept noticing that extinctions seem to occur in sync with magnetic reversals, and then I also began to notice that suddenly brand new kinds of animals would suddenly appear on our planet, and so I felt compelled to write the second book, tying those together, because when we have a magnetic reversal, our magnetosphere is what protects us from cosmic rays,
right,
and from radioactive material. And when we go through a magnetic reversal, we lose that magnetic shielding. And again, this is a cycle that shows up in the geologic record, is that radioactive strontium all of a sudden appears on our planet. Many different kinds of radioactive beryllium, but many different kinds of radioactivity pour onto our planet. So mutations, there's not much choice. But anyway, yes, I do have that second book available on my website.
Very good.
And I don't have time to update that website as much as the other. Ice Age Now I update every single day. Evolutionary Leaps I update about once a week. One of the big things in the book that I was so impressed with is the Carolina Bays. And I don't remember whether you and I talked about that.
We did, and let's please revisit that because it's fascinating.
Well, I want to revisit it for two reasons. Well, number one, Carolina Bays are giant holes that were gouged into the ground about 12,000 years ago in sync with the Gothenburg magnetic reversal. And we're talking about 2 million holes gouged into the ground around the United States. And when I say holes, some of them are as small as an acre, but some of them are up to 6 miles across. Now, it used to be, before the airplane was invented that people just thought they were swamps. The reason they're called Carolina Bays, by the way, is because there's bay trees often that are growing in them. It's not because they're bays.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, these are, when the airplane was invented and photographers were flying over these things in North Carolina and South Carolina, they noticed that all of these swamps were elliptical and that all of them were oriented in the same direction, essentially north-south. Nobody knew what caused it. In today's world, I think scientists are thinking they were caused by a meteorite strike that exploded. And yet there are no meteorite fragments from that period. But there's 2 million of these holes. They're bigger than a nearby city. I sure wouldn't have wanted to be standing at ground zero. And again, you can go onto Google Earth and you can see these things for yourself. It's the most amazing thing.
Your forecast for the rest of the winter, we've had 2 really terrifically intense storms moving across the Midwest.
I would not be surprised if January and February that the Northwest sees some of the coldest weather that they've seen in 100 years. This is a La Nina year, and there was a horrible time like this back in the 30s. It wouldn't surprise me if that would happen again.
I agree. Do you feel we're underway with the mini ice age?
I think we're headed into it. And by the way, that does not mean everybody's going to be covered by ice.
No, thank you. That's why I brought it up.
on my website, if they go there and scroll down a little bit on the right-hand side, they'll find Ice Age maps that shows where the ice extended to during the last ice age. But essentially, the climate of Chicago will move to Atlanta. And south of there, it won't be that much different. I know during the last ice age, Seattle was covered by 4,000 feet of ice, but
wow.
200 miles south of Seattle, temperatures were only about 7 degrees colder than they are right now.
Well, what happens is very simple. The snow turns to packed ice over time, and it doesn't melt off, and it actually lasts through the summer.
Right. It's some people think, oh, you mean the glaciers are going to come grinding out of the north? I had one guy say, oh, walk for your life, the ice is coming. But no, it's a snow blitz. It just snows and snows and snows and snows.
Yeah. Well, Europe and Great Britain are just taking it on the chin, and they're going to continue to do so. There are going to be a lot of people die there, unfortunately.
I have something on my website, too, is that predictions out of the United Kingdom, and they're making these predictions themselves, but they figure that 35,000 people could die this winter from the cold just in the United Kingdom.
I know.
And this is not something I'm making up. This is something that they are predicting.
Yeah. It's all true, and it's really quite sad. We have just 30 seconds. Any comment on the faltering Gulf Stream and its impact on this terrible cold winter in the UK and in Europe?
I've heard people trying to blame that on the oil spill, and I don't think it has anything to do with the oil spill. I think that we're
in a cycle.
And I'm not even sure that it's faltering as much as some people are telling us. I'm going to take that one with a grain of salt. I'm beginning to see that we're trying to blame humans for this one again, and it's got nothing to do with humans.
Well, if you blame humans, you can tax them.